prior to the pandemic starting, we were pretty optimistic given the robust pace of housing across the for sale and the new construction or resale market. So it was a very strong second half of 19, accelerating into 2020, and we saw across all metrics. The good news for the new construction market is that it's been deemed essential, and therefore builders are not only able to continue to build and sell homes, but there are brokers that are able to continue to sell on the resale side, where maybe sellers are more reluctant to have people come through their homes. Manufacturers, everything in the food chain of housing is again deemed essential, so that's the positive. This really just shows you some select markets where we look at what we call high-risk markets, and in terms of the top 40 average, it's 21%. But you could see that like the Inland Empire in your neck of the woods is making the top 10. If you look at the markets with the least risk, DC is at the top, thanks to the government spending, printing money basically. You can see our 2020 forecast for household formation is really plummeted, and we expect that this is really just a result of significant job losses. We've seen a pretty significant spike from where we had been, which was pretty much back at that 50 level. And that's really a result from the chaos and disruption happening in the mortgage market as a result of the government's ridiculously bad decision to basically provide consumers forbearance on their mortgage payments, which I say ridiculous because you don't have to prove any hardship. The lowest risk borrower for FHA and VA are really borrowers below a 680 FICO score. So right now, some lenders won't go anything below 680. Some are saying 640, 660. It could be worse than the Great Recession if we don't see some credit tightening relief. Notice here that it's not just the credit score, it's also debt to income ratios. So if we just pick the middle bars here and we'll focus on FHA, the lenders are saying, if you're above 45, then we're not going to lend to you. So they're having multiple credit overlays. A lot of builders are scrubbing their backlogs to make sure that buyers are able to get approved. And that's one of the biggest risks with the credit tightening that's really been substantial over the last 2-3 weeks. In 18 and 19, home improvement was actually underperforming overall personal consumer expenditures. And you could see in the Great Recessions that the home centers were down on average that 5.5%. But overall home improvement spend, reflective of the maintenance items, you could see that we're only looking for 2.6%. What we have seen though is very, very strong categories. People are bored, they're staying home, they're doing projects, even with the DIY spending being better than other categories in big ticket, we're still seeing that POS weak. Raw materials, that's certainly a one silver lining for the manufacturers as input costs are down. The number of units that were under construction when this pandemic hit were at multi-decade highs. But once you start to see a resumption of growth in an economy that's clearly going to have very, very high unemployment, you're going to have also a supply issue as more supply will be hitting the market. We expect a pretty ugly back half of 2020, but even worse in 2021, with the expectation that we'll see high single-digit growth declines in overall revenue growth. We wanted to quadrant where we're seeing weakness that's deteriorating further in the bottom left-hand quadrant. You wouldn't be surprised that you see Las Vegas and Louisiana on there. The Bay Area, I should just say in general, has been weaker than Southern Cal. And up in the left-hand corner, Seattle, one interesting thing, and this is again, just looking at rental, this is not for sale, is improving, but still weak. We wanted to show you that strong but deteriorating is the bulk of the markets. It's definitely an unfortunate new reality in living in a world of this pandemic.